We got some Jets news to discuss, a lot to get into, and we say hello to our guy who normally joins us Wednesday morning. Today, it's Wednesday afternoon. It's Omari Brown from JetX. Omari, how we feeling?
Feeling great, feeling great. Asman in the afternoon, man. Feels good. How you
We're in
doing?
Vegas, man. We got a view of Stadium Swim over there. You got the hotel room here. So when I get done with you, I'll be jumping into the pool. I look forward to that.
Nice. What's the weather like out there?
100 degrees.
There we go.
It
There we
is.
go.
It is hot. There's no doubt about that. So while I was on the flight this morning, I started getting tagged in a bunch of tweets, and our guy Connor Long goes, "I know you're a Tomlin fan. Did you see this?" And I'm like, "Did I see what?" I'm half asleep on my morning flight. Well, Jason Lockenforer, who for years was with CBS Sports, now is writing about the NFL for, I kid you not, a website that is called casino.org. But hey, Lockenforer wrote this story, and I want to go through it, and we'll discuss how believable some of this stuff is and whether or not Jet fans should be on board with this possible plan that apparently Woody Johnson is already thinking about. So, the main findings of the article is that Mike Tomlin, the ex Steelers coach, who's now, of course, with NBC, is generating significant interest among NFL owners for a potential return back to head coaching. Jets owner Woody Johnson is reportedly doing his homework on Tomlin, with NFL sources believing the Jets are the front runners to sign him. NFL GMs believe Lamar Jackson could seek a trade, with a Mike Tomlin led Jets viewed as a potential destination. So we certainly have a lot to cover in this story here. But Omari, let's start with key point number one that I don't think anyone can dispute. Yeah, a bunch of NFL owners are certainly going to be interested in Mike Tomlin if he decides he wants to coach again. He's one of the most successful coaches in the NFL over the last 25 years. And I know he only has that quote unquote one Super Bowl win, but he's never had a losing season. And when you're a Jet fan who all you know is losing seasons, anyone dismissing that as an idea that makes no sense for a team that's missed the playoffs 15 straight years, I think is nuts. But let's just start with the interest in Tomlin. What was your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction was number one, this is such a lock and for story. NFL owners have interest in Hall of Fame coach should he choose to become an NFL coach again. I mean, let's get it to the hot presses, right? I mean, it's a no brainer. I mean, even if Aaron Glenn is, the ceiling of what most people think that he can be this year, still, Mike Tomlin is Mike Tomlin. And I think that for just like you said, for a team that's constantly losing, for a team that's in the midst of the longest playoff drought in in North American sports, you absolutely have to entertain the idea of a Mike Tomlin coming in just to be able to get you back to, relevance. And you have on a Knicks championship hat right now, and I think that that's just like a Tom Thibodeau signing. Now, maybe he only has, the people say quote unquote only he only has the one Super Bowl, but he still has that Super Bowl. And I think that a lot of Jets fans would sign up for sustained success and just some credibility and honestly just a standard. I think the Jets standard right now, if you ask what is the Jets standard, a lot of people would say losing. So Mike Tomlin gives you instant credibility. And that's before we even get into the last bullet point, which I think is absolutely insane.
And we will certainly get into the Lamar Jackson angle in this story. But look, here's the bottom line. Jason Lockenforer, we could say, it's clickbait. He's making this up. I don't buy that. I do think there's validity to the fact that Woody Johnson looks across town and he sees John Harbaugh taking over the Giants. And if the Giants have success in year one with Harbaugh, I could see Woody Johnson being like, maybe it's time for me to finally hire a proven coach. The Jets turnaround, if you think about it, under Woody Johnson's ownership had a lot to do with the fact the previous owner, Leon Hess, finally had enough of losing and hired Bill Parcells, and the Jets essentially rode the Parcells success and foundation he laid into Herm Edwards, into Mangini, into Rex. The Jets from 1997 to 2016, they never had back-to-back losing seasons, and so much of that was because Parcells took over a one-win team and steered the ship to 9-7 and then 12-4 in the AFC title game. And the Jets had success. They were a normal franchise. They made the playoffs 6 times in the 2000s under Woody Johnson. So, again, maybe Woody's finally having that wake-up call. I can't keep hiring first-time head coaches and having them learn on the job in New York. The Giants finally said, enough. Let's go and get a proven coach. First time they've done that since since Tom Coughlin, and maybe this is Woody Johnson's wake up moment, because as much as any Jet fan should want Aaron Glenn to succeed, the most likely scenario is the Jets aren't good this year and they're going to need a head coach. So Mike Tomlin should be at the top of everyone's list because he's a proven commodity and he could get the franchise back to respectability. And we could debate whether or not he could get them to the big game and win the big game. But if you're the Jets and you've missed the playoffs 15 straight years and you haven't won more than 7 games in a decade, Mike Tomlin should be at the top of your list. He's a proven commodity and a culture changer who will make the Jets no longer a laughing stock the second he steps into the building.
Yeah, so I agree with you to an extent because one thing I will say is yes, Mike Tomlin. Listen, I do Jets content all the time, so I don't know. You got me, Jake?
It looks like you just disappeared. I hear you though. Your camera went
Oh,
down.
okay. All right, I'll keep going. But yeah, so Mike Tomlin's coming in, but I think we're getting to a point now as Jets fans to where we need to just bust proof this entire thing. So that means getting a quarterback that's bust proof. That means getting a coach and a staff in here that's bust proof. So I think more importantly than Tomlin, I think it's going to be who's going to be the staff that he hires, right? Who's going to be? Oh, there we go. Who's he going to bring in to ultimately develop that quarterback? Because to be honest, I just can't see. We'll get into that, the Lamar Jackson stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. Who is going to be the quarterback's coach? Who's going to be the defensive coordinators? Mike Tomlin is good, but I'm almost at the point now where if you're going to bring in Mike Tomlin and probably give him carte blanche, then you might as well just open the checkbook and just assemble the Avengers of coaches. So bring me Mike Tomlin, bring me Shane Steichen, bring me Brian Flores, whatever you have to do in order to make this thing fully bust proof, because I think that the Jets, they're not, they're not a legacy franchise, but they are one of the first franchises to build the NFL from the AFL. But this is just such a unique situation.
The Jake Asman Show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks right now. If you're a sports fan, they have something for everyone, especially if you're one of my listeners and you're gearing up for the upcoming Jets season. For player picks on PrizePicks, you just pick a player you like and you go more or less on a few of their stats. Check out some of the numbers they have for some of your favorite Jet players: Geno Smith, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper Jr., Kenyon Sadiq, and many more. PrizePicks should be your go-to, and check out their new offer right now. Play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you need to do is sign up and use that code HMA. That's PrizePicks code HMA. Download the app now or click the link in the description to download the PrizePicks app today.
The amount of media, I mean, you have psychopaths like you and myself that cover this team religiously every single day. I mean, it's constant. For a team that hasn't made the playoffs in 15 years, the noise and the constant circulation of news around this team is actually remarkable when you think about it. So I think if you're going to bring in Mike Tomlin, because, the biggest thing with Mike Tomlin is, who is from Mike Tomlin's tree. So I think that there are some concerns there with that. So I would like a strong staff because they've already, Woody, the last, I want to say 5 coaches, only one of them have been offensive minded, right? Adam Gase. So whoever comes in here now, Tomlin, I understand he can be the CEO, even though I hate the rah-rah leader of men cliches. But again, it's going to be extremely important who his staff is and who he hires.
I think this story is also notable because of Woody's going to be finally looking at experienced coaches. Sean McDermott's name, I'd imagine, would be very high on this list as well. To me, the Jets really have 2 options if Aaron Glenn can't figure it out. You hire the Tomlin McDermott type, or you take a swing on the top offensive mind who's the strategist who could fix your quarterback situation, right? Has major input in which quarterback you draft with one of your 3 first-round picks, and at least at the bare minimum, you feel like you are going to put yourself in position where that quarterback has success and is developed properly. So hopefully Woody is at least thinking in terms of one of those options. But in the story, I'll read you some quotes here. Quote, numerous well-placed league sources close to ownership groups, including teams whose current coaches are under fire, state that preliminary groundwork for a potential pursuit of Mike Tomlin is underway in East Rutherford. Quote, Woody is starting to ask a lot of questions. He's doing his homework on Tomlin, said one executive who knows Jets owner Woody Johnson well. This one has legs, I'm telling you. Mike is in New York at Rockefeller Center for NBC. Woody is back in charge of the facility, and he knows how steep the competition will be. You're going to hear a lot about the Jets. Over the years, Johnson has largely hired first-time head coaches, but that philosophy could be shifting. It references in the story Harbaugh going to the Giants. I brought that up months ago as something that I think could influence Woody. Let's remember, Woody Johnson went out of his way to acquire Tim Tebow after the Giants won their second Super Bowl. After their first Super Bowl, he wanted to acquire and did acquire Brett Favre. If the Giants are good, if they make the playoffs, if they're the talk of the town again, which I think they have a chance to be, guess what? That's going to cause Woody to, I think, have a blank check for a guy like Mike Tomlin. I think that's how he operates. So I do buy, that aspect of the report. The other line in here that I think is interesting is like it feels like to people around the league, this head coach, the current head coach, is as dead as you could be. In the story, an NFL GM, a current GM, apparently said this to Lock and Four, quote, Glenn is a dead man walking. Woody wanting Tomlin makes sense. No one has any faith that Aaron Glenn getting this mulligan going from year 1 to year 2 is going to be able to figure this out. And again, if you're betting on the most likely scenario is the Jets, whose win total is 5.5, aren't going to be good again, and they're going to be looking for a head coach.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand, and I see, on the timeline, people coming at you saying that you want the Jets to fail, you want Aaron Glenn to fail. No, we're just being objective from what we saw. Now, again, if Aaron Glenn goes out there and wins games, Aaron Glenn is in control of the narratives. He's in control of his football future. He's in control of the way he's going to be looked at amongst his peers in NFL circles. And what he put out last year, regardless of the context, regardless if you want to say that they were tanking or not, it was just not good. It was not good. Many people don't get to start off 0-7 and fire their entire staff and get another crack at it. So we're just basically echoing what a lot of people saw and what some people just choose not to bring up when they're speaking about Aaron Glenn. It's not that we hate Glenn. We don't have a personal vendetta against Aaron Glenn. Like we're Jets fans at the end of the day, and we want the Jets to do good. What Aaron Glenn put on tape, and even he would tell you, what he put on tape was objectively bad. So Woody Johnson would be doing his franchise a disservice if he wasn't preparing for life after Aaron Glenn, because the probability of him coming out, Vegas is telling you, his peers are telling you that he's probably not going to be the head coach of the Jets. So again, all this can change. Listen, we could be here on a Wednesday in November talking about the Jets are in the hunt, and all the Mike Tomlin stuff from the Lock and Four article back in August sounds just absolutely ridiculous right now. But we're just not at that point.
You look at the quote here that I'll put up on the screen. I mean, this is how Glenn is viewed by anyone with a brain. Executives across the league already view a shift in New York as inevitable. Glenn is a dead man walking, and he knows it, one GM noted. I hear the same thing about Woody wanting Tomlin. It makes complete sense. Money won't be an object. I mean, it shouldn't be. Again, if you're Woody Johnson, you maybe have that Leon Hess moment and say, I'm tired of losing. Get me someone who could turn it around. And I've been using the analogy that you brought up for months on the show. The Knicks winning a title did not just start with Mike Brown taking over this year and they won a title. It started with getting out of the abyss by hiring a proven basketball savant in Tom Thibodeau, who raised the floor for the Knicks immediately and built a winning culture that then Mike Brown came in and, to his credit, got them over the top and did exactly what he needed to do and should get incredible amounts of praise for the rest of his life for doing so. I believe the Jets might have their Leon Rose, the GM who could put the team together that gives you a chance to contend eventually in Darren Muji. I don't believe in Glenn, and if Woody's having doubts on Glenn, he needs to be prepared to act and hire someone that could be that Tom Thibodeau was to the New York Knicks. So, again, root for Glenn to turn it around, but if he can't, I'm glad the owner is maybe waking up to the fact I can't keep hiring first-time defensive coordinators and expecting them to come in, learn on the job, and figure it out. The Jet job is not like any other job in sports. I think it's the hardest job for any head coach, you could argue, in sports right now. You inherit the longest playoff drought in professional sports, and it's New York, and the spotlight's on you. And I hope to God, if they can't get it right with Glenn, Woody finally hires a proven commodity as the team's next head coach.
Yeah, it's so funny, and I found it interesting because a lot of fans, and I try to stay, try to keep the pulse of the fans, and I know you do as well too. A lot of people want to go from the absolute cellar to the promised land, and it just doesn't work like that, because before you get to Mike Brown, you have to be in your David Fizdale, Jeff Hornacek era. You have to go through all that. I think right now the Jets are in the midst of that. I think it's David Fisdale time right now that we're going through. So before they even got to Thibodeau, before you can get to winning a Super Bowl, you have to be relevant for a handful of years, because just like losing, it takes a couple years to get the stench of that. Winning also takes time as well too, and changing a mindset and changing a culture. Even though culture is like a buzzword and I hate using that, but it does take time. So again, if this doesn't turn around, I think Mike Tomlin is absolutely the guy to do it, and I also believe that Sean McDermott is a guy to do it, just like of that ilk. But actually, I want to ask you a question, Jake. So if you, let's say that, what did Harbaugh get? Maybe 15 mil per or something like that, or whatever. So whatever the deal is for Tomlin or even McDermott, but I think Tomlin has a little more cachet than McDermott. What do you give him carte blanche? Do you give him final say on roster moves, because you do believe in Darren Muji? Are you going to hamstring Muji and then he has to report up to Mike Tomlin? What would the hierarchy be if you bring in a Tomlin?
My understanding is, from people I continue to talk to, that Darren Muji is well regarded around the league. And if Joe Shane could keep his job working hand in hand with Harbaugh, I'd imagine Mike Tomlin would have no problem working alongside Darren Muji. Now, Tomlin, if he needs to take the job, needs final say, I'd give it to him. But I don't think Darren Muji is going to be like, nope, that's not going to work for me. I'm gone. Like, I think Darren Muji would want to work with a guy like Mike Tomlin. I could see the symmetry working out well if it made sense. Now, Tomlin might have the final say, but I think those guys will see eye to eye on personnel decisions, if that makes sense. Like, again, we've seen this now where the GM typically gets to stay and the head coach gets can't. There's so many examples in recent years of GM surviving and the coach going. I know for a fact Woody Johnson believes in Darren Muji. I don't care what anyone on the internet says or whatever Jet reporter is trying to spin this narrative that, oh, Aaron Glenn and Darren Muji, they work side by side and Glenn's got final say on everything. The power dynamics have clearly changed. Mike Francesa has said this for months. I've heard it privately, and I know Woody Johnson publicly told fans at the Good Morning America TV segment that Darren is our, quote, general. He's changed everything for us. He's doing it how he sees fit. He's running the show for us. I just know for a fact Woody is a believer in Muji. So I think he'd get Muji and Tomlin in a room, and I think they'd be able to work it out. So that's kind of how I see the dynamic. I see Tomlin probably having final say because he's Mike Tomlin, but I think Darren Muji and him would work well.
Okay, yeah, and I agree with you. I think you can also tell by the way Darren Muji's operating. Number one, he's more comfortable in his role and in himself as an NFL GM. But again, he's speaking way more. At the
When he
opening
doesn't have to. Yeah,
when he does, yeah, he wasn't even scheduled to speak at day one of training camp, and he wanted to come out and just really. I think a lot of it too, and I've been talking about this. I feel like there's been a separation. Like, yes, we're still working together, Glenn and Muji in conjunction with each other, but I think that there's been a clear separation, and publicly he wants to know that there's been a separation too. That's why I think even periodically during the season, it wouldn't even shock me if every quarter of the season, like every 4 or 5 games or so, we're hearing from Darren Muji. So you're right. I agree with that.
Comments, questions, super chats. They cut the line. Ladies and gentlemen, Omari Brown is with us here, and we certainly have a lot to talk about. Let me put up the excerpt from the story about Lamar Jackson's future. So in the article, it says, quote, a potential Tomlin hire could immediately trigger secondary moves across the league, with conversations pointing towards a pursuit of 2-time MVP quarterback Lamar Jackson. Jackson enters a high-stakes stretch with his long-term future in Baltimore unresolved amidst ongoing contract negotiations. Representing himself, Jackson's current deal carries an $84.5 million cap hit for 2027, alongside standard no trade and no tag clauses. Multiple league executives believe Jackson could explore potential trade avenues following previous extension standoffs. If Tomlin takes the reins in New York, where the Jets boast premium draft capital, including 3 first-round selections, there is a belief Jackson would strongly evaluate the destination. The pair share a deep mutual respect built over years of AFC North battles, and New York's defensive core provides an immediate foundation for a contender. One thing on that, that's not exactly true. David Bailey's really good, but who's this defensive core that the Jets have right now? Their best player might be a 37-year-old linebacker and a 30-year-old, strong safety. Yeah, so that's a stretch there, but okay, I'll play along. Combined with Johnson's history of pursuing marquee names and Tomlin's preference for a veteran QB, the alignment is clear. What do you make of this? Do you see any scenario where if Tomlin's the Jet coach, Lamar Jackson is actually in play with one of these or multiple first-round picks that the Jets have?
I mean, listen, that's going to be a ton of draft capital just to get both of those guys in here, right? Because you're talking about all three of those picks. I think any conversation that starts with any of these QBs that people like to fantasize about, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, even Baker Mayfield, if he gets franchise tagged, I think the conversation with Burrow and Lamar starts at 3-1s, right? You probably give up 2 in 27 and probably 1 in 28. But then also, Jake, what we didn't touch on is that Mike Tomlin's still on the contract, so you're probably going to have to surrender some draft capital to get him from Pittsburgh over to the Jets too. So you're looking at 2 first-round picks. You're probably looking at what Sean Payton went for first, right? Or was that a second rounder?
Sean Payton went for a second-round pick.
Second rounder. Okay, so let's say you lose 3 picks right there. You lose 3 of your 4 premium picks right out the gate. And then you're probably going to lose your first in 2028. And then you still have to build out this roster. So a lot of people, this specifically is saying that the Jets have some defensive foundation. I'm in agreement with you. You got David Bailey, the number 2 overall pick, who hasn't beaten a starting tackle yet in a game. You got Jawan Briggs and Will McDonald, who's in a contract, who's going to be in a contract year. You got Demario Davis, who probably has, hopefully this year and next year, has a good year. And then after that, you got a bunch of question marks. I like A.Z. Thomas. You drafted D'Angelo Pons. But then after that, it's just a bunch of question marks. So you're going to bring Mike Tomlin over here with a very expensive and entering age 30. Yeah, entering his age 30 season, Lamar Jackson, who's been nicked up now, whose legs and his mobility is probably going to start to decrease. I don't know, man. That has like a recipe for disaster. You're going to have to hit on your picks. And then all of a sudden, instead of building, it takes you out of, this rebuilding phase into a win now. Now, all of a sudden, we're trying to attract aging veterans on 1-year contracts, or people are coming over trying to play with Lamar and Mike Tomlin. But again, they're on 1-year deals. And I don't understand how you really build up any sustainability in that point, because then it'll start to feel like the Tom Thibodeau when they sign a bunch of power forwards or a bunch of 1-year deals with the Reggie Bullocks and the Nerlens Noel. That's what it's going to start to feel like, but there's no superstar. The superstar was Julius Randle, but now you actually have a bona fide superstar and a top 5 QB. So now you're going to be scrambling to build out the rest of the roster to make sure that you maximize Lamar's window.
The deal. Just got no chance unless you click on that like button. And you got to make sure you subscribe to the Jake Asman Show. You don't, you can get the f*** out. Now let's go, Asmaniacs. We're built for this shit.